sky, despite what you may think after today. We actually have a sponsor who made that possible, BlackBerry. And Angela Lasasso, who had to jump and catch a plane, who was here. If you caught her session, I'm sorry that we missed her, but thank you to BlackBerry for making that possible. And if anyone doesn't want theirs, just let me know. Also, apparently people don't like Indian or Italian since no one signed up. Well, we had one sign up for my dinner, and she's already asking if she can get out of it. Just kidding. No, it's a ride situation. Do I have people now? Okay, forget it. We're good. But anyway, there's still room on all the dinners. And we were going to consolidate. That was all I was going to say, but no need. We're going to Amber, India. Right on. Okay, great. We're all good? Thank you. And finally, we have the bookstore outside, and I know Charlene Lee had signed some copies of her book, but there are a lot of books out there. Hope that you will stop by, and if you haven't already, there are some of our wonderful speakers and mentors have books out there, and attendees. Thank you. So I did see Twitter for Dummies. I know Susan Getgood, who is actually one of Susan's book is out there too. So Stephanie O'Day, A Year of Crockpotting. Which one is it? Both of her books are here. So do check them out. Just wanted to make sure you were aware that we have a bookstore. And without further ado, I will hand over the mic to Elisa.
Thank you, Jory. So I know this has been a marathon day. We have packed in the information and the learning, but we've really saved an excellent, excellent session that will keep your attention for the next 2 hours. It's in 2 parts. And first is a panel, and then 4 organizations that support women entrepreneurs are going to come up here and tell you what they do, how they can support you, and they've each brought someone who has been through their program or has signed up for their services, someone who can tell you what it's really like to work with that organization. So it's all the way to the last minute. We are just going to give you all the possible information and resources that we possibly can to take your idea to the next level. But in the meantime, let me bring up this first panel who are going to give you some really rapid-fire advice about the one thing not to do, the one thing to do, the one thing you got to remember when you're out there trying to pitch your big idea. And I'll ask Patty Sellers, editor-at-large at Fortune Magazine and the co-founder and co-chair of the Most Powerful Women's Summit, to come up. She is our moderator this evening. And we also have Ellen Powell from Kleiner Perkins. Janet Riccio from Omnicom, and Kim Polese, who is a Silicon Valley icon, I think, is the title I will give you. And thank you, ladies. Take it away.
A bunch of Italians up here.
We like that.
Thank you. And I just have to say that I've been at Fortune for 27 years, and we started this Most Powerful Women franchise, which some of you might be familiar with, in 1998, and it's now Fortune's second biggest brand after the Fortune 500, which is saying something both about the power of women, despite what you hear about women, the glass ceiling, the leaky pipeline, says something about the increasing power and influence of women, but also the desire of men who are, still in control of 488 of the Fortune 500 companies, to get women, to promote women to higher positions, to get women on their boards, and the potential for every woman who I always, when people say, oh, there's a leaky pipeline, there's a glass ceiling in corporate America, I always say, yeah, but look at what they're doing when they're leaving. They're starting companies, and that may be an even better thing than staying in the Fortune 500. So we are trying to expand our world at Fortune, our women's world at Fortune, to include more entrepreneurs, which is one reason I'm here, and I am more jazzed about this world of women than I've ever been. And one of the reasons is I just get such a great vibe hanging out with people like you, and this has been such a fabulous event. So kudos to you, Lisa and Elisa and Jory. It's really been terrific. So I'm thrilled to be doing this, and one of the things that we heard this morning or today was that women don't, and I have found this over the years of covering these, more corporate women, but also women like Oprah and Martha Stewart and, some sort of very iconic entrepreneurs. Women really do have a hard time promoting themselves, saying why they're great. And somebody said a couple of hours ago that, women tend to say, what their company does and why their company's great, but they're very shy. We're very shy about saying why we're so fabulous. So that's my first question. Tell us, take a minute, do the elevator pitch on you and why you're sitting up here and what is the fabulous value that you bring to this group. Kim?
Okay, wow. Let's see. I love working with smart people, being on a mission to change the world. I just think there's nothing more exhilarating and fun in life than doing that. And so that's why I'm a serial entrepreneur. And
make sure you include in this, I don't require it to be an elevator pitch, but
yes.
Make sure you include, a bit about your background because, they can read the bio.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was a girl geek and worked for Sun Microsystems. That was kind of my first major job actually worked for a startup, an AI expert system software before going to Sun. Learned a lot of lessons at that AI company and a lot of sort of what not to do's. And also what to-dos, and then went to Sun. I was at Sun for 7 years. I was part of the original Java team and launched Java at Sun, and then left with 3 of my colleagues in '96 to start a company called Marimba, which we took public and sold, and then ran another software company, recently sold that, and now am working on a couple new startups. So again, I think I'm officially a serial entrepreneur. And what attracts me to this, and sort of when I think about what I do best, it's galvanizing a team around a mission and then driving like hell to get to that end point and then persevering along the way. And there's a lot that goes into that. I think people many of us, or in general, you sort of get excited about the idea of being in a startup, and often, and it's sort of a good thing probably, but you forget about how long it takes and how hard it is. And that part of the stick with it, perseverance, plow through any wall, climb any mountain, that part of it is, to me, one of the most exciting, fun, rewarding, tough elements of doing a startup and being an entrepreneur. So when I look back at what I do best, I think it's seeing an opportunity, being able to assemble a team that can go and take that opportunity on, and then persevering until we get to that ultimate success or end point. And that's sort of, I think, what an entrepreneur has to do. But the perseverance part and what can go wrong along the way is one of the more interesting elements of this, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Janet?
I'm fabulous because...
Right, that's what we want to hear.
Let me think. There are two things, and I have almost 30 years in the advertising business, and now I am at Omnicom Group, which is a large holding company of talent. We own about 1,200 companies, all advertising and marketing services. I am the top-ranking female, so I'm going to tout my own. I am the top-ranking female of Omnicom, and we have 65,000 employees. So I think that's part of the reason that I'm here. And I'm going to stay there, and I'm going to bring women up through that organization if it's the last thing I do, because that is my legacy. There is going to be a CEO of one of our major brands before I leave or shortly after. I only in the last few years have really been vibrantly aware of the power of women. I started a small consultancy called G23 at Omnicom, and it focuses on the power of the female economy and its activation globally. And that is something that has woken me up to the power of women and girls around the world. It has also opened up my philanthropic life. And so I think that's another reason that I am here, because I am an extraordinary believer in the power of women and us not only mentoring. I am a big, big believer in sponsoring. I think mentoring is great, and we all need great mentors who will advise and help us, keep our rudder strong. But I'm also a beneficiary of sponsors throughout my life, all men, by the way. I have never worked for a woman. And the sponsors that I've had in my life have been the ones that say, she's the one for that job. She's the one that should get that promotion. She's the one that should be there. And that's something that I think that we've all got to think about in our lives. I know that many of you are entrepreneurs, but if you have the impact and have the ability to sponsor a woman to move her ahead, let's do that. That's why more men are still promoted than women, because we get mentored and they get sponsored. So I think that's another thing that I think about a lot. So my career path has been pretty straightforward advertising, but now I'm given the opportunity to do a lot of really interesting things with a fantastic male CEO.
We'll talk about, John Wren, one of the longest standing CEOs. We'll talk a little bit about G23 a little bit later. Ellen?
I am a bad self-promoter, so I'll just say I'm fit into the mold. I'm not a good self-promoter.
This is going to be your therapy session.
A little bit awkward for me. I'm at Kleiner Perkins, so I look at investing in great entrepreneurs and great companies. We invested in Kim's company. We're very happy for that. And I guess the reason why I'm here is just to try to help you guys. I like to help people. I like to help my entrepreneurs and try to help you guys figure out how to be successful in what you guys are doing. There is a little bit of an inside game in venture, and there's certain things that work better than others, and you have to really figure out how you navigate it, and hopefully I can help you do that.
Just give a little background, though, because you were in the big, sort of Fortune 500 world for a while, and that wasn't a great experience, I sense, and then you decided just talk. You've had an interesting career history.
So I worked as a lawyer in a big corporate company, corporate law firm. Didn't like that much. I ended up going to business school and wanted to help work on technologies and products. So I ended up at Web TV, which was part of Microsoft, and that was a pretty good experience, but I really wanted to get more done and try to be a little bit more hands-on. I ended up joining a few startups, Tell Me Networks, Danger Research, and then BA, which was a big corporate a big company, and I liked it, but the politics and the kind of process of going through all the ranks was a little bit frustrating, and I ended up in venture where I was able to work with a lot of really small companies where, really small teams can get so much more done. You don't have any of the bureaucracy, you don't have as much of the politics, and it's a much more fun environment because there's just too much to do to really sit around and fight about who gets to own which project.
Okay, I'm going to stay with you, Ellen. So this is supposed to be, I kept hearing this, it's rapid fire, it's 40 minutes. Well, in 40 minutes, believe me, I don't have enough rapid fire questions. So think about questions to ask. We want you to ask a lot of the questions, and we have mic handlers here. We've hit the big time here. This is like Broadway with this theater. We have mic handlers, and but I'll start out just by asking all of you. But let's start with Ellen. What is the one thing that entrepreneurs should do? The most important thing should do or say in a pitch?
For most people, it's to really be excited about the product or be excited about what you're doing. And one of the companies that did one of the best pitches I've seen was One Kings Lane. So that's Allie Pincus and Susan Feldman, who are just so excited about what they're doing. They were so excited about their product. They came in with a pitch, and the slide deck was in the same font and colors of their website. They brought in their own product, and they showed how it gets packaged, how it gets wrapped, how they've got a note, a note signed by them in every package that went out. And they were so proud of their product. They were so proud of what they did, and they had so much information about it. They knew exactly what their customer was. They knew exactly how the customer behaved over time. They knew exactly where they wanted to go, and it was just this phenomenal passion for what they did, their product, and their customer base that really drove them over the edge.
Interesting. That's great. I know both of them, and they're really impressive, and it's nice to see them doing as well as they are. Janet? Now at Omnicom, why don't you explain how you get exposure to pitches at?
I don't see a lot of pitches at Omnicom. We have an entire M&A department that buys, and we don't invest, we buy. So I did a little pre-work on this, talking to companies that we've most recently bought, to find out from them what they had done in their early years to get capital, et cetera. And so I am going to be referencing Diane Hessen, who is the CEO of Communispace, who we just bought about 6 weeks or so ago, and I think that she's just a brilliant woman. And so she gave me her top 10. By the way, her last one is go for it. The worst thing that happens is that you have to find a job. So
Yeah, good.
I think that's really.
Oh, we'd love. Would you be willing to share the? Well, I want to hear the one. I want you to pick one of those, but I actually think we would love to hear the top 10. If you we have 40 minutes.
I'm sure that we'll cover most of them as we go through this. She didn't give it any rank orders, but I think just following on what Ellen said, she says to think as hard about your business model as you do about your idea. You might have a great idea, but if you can't demonstrate how you will make money, it doesn't matter. Sure, Twitter didn't have that figured out yet, but honestly, you're most likely not Twitter.
Yeah, that's good. That's
so
good.
I thought that was a good one. Shall I take one more?
Why don't we go to Kim,
Okay.
and then I actually, she literally has 10 there?
Yeah.
I'm going to come back to you, and why don't you just read the 10? I mean, this is like,
Sure.
Why not? Kim?
Yeah, love to hear it. So couldn't agree more about the passion part. And that's usually not a difficult element to bring forth as an entrepreneur because you're probably pretty damn passionate, but let that come through. The other thing I would just advise is that oftentimes entrepreneurs sort of fall in love with their product and forget the context around them and other products perhaps that are either competitive or potential partnerships, and the broader market around your idea and your product. So explain what you do in the context of what's out there. That helps, I think, investors understand better how you think of yourself, and it also helps them understand how you might fit in and downstream, even what an exit might look like. So that would be an additional advice.
Who was saying earlier today, was it Laura Yoler, or how it drives her crazy when people, when someone says, we don't have competitors. Was it Laurie or who was it that said that? Oh, we don't have competitors. Yeah. And like, you better have competitors and know your competitors. And, any investor wants to know that you have your eye on competitors. Yep. Yeah. And like, and I think she said, if you think that you are creating a market that doesn't exist anymore, doesn't currently exist, well, that's, and that's not, probably not happening. Anyway, go for it.
Well, and I think a lot of them were said at lunch today. So
we don't mind hearing them.
So
again.
Diane says, number one, VCs are human. They'd like to invest in people they know or in people their friends know. Thus, if you have no relationship with them, you are a mere business plan from a stranger. Work your network. You can get an audience with a referral, but it's a really long shot to go in cold. Mm-hmm. Number two is expect rejection. I think that was really clear today. Yeah. Dozens of VCs are going to say no. The third was net it out. A long, boring PowerPoint presentation doesn't get anyone excited these days, and that goes for VCs too. Mm-hmm. She says the best presentation starts with a slide that says, here are the 8 things that I want you to walk away with, and then she says everything else is appendix. Ask for candid feedback. When a VC says they are not interested, and Ellen, I think that you two can really chime in here. When a VC says they're not interested, they will most likely give you a standard answer, like this is just not the kind of company we invest in. Politely push for a reason why. Tell them you aren't trying to change their mind, but that you just want to learn. They might then say, well, I just don't see how the business is scalable. And you can probe and learn more about how to improve your business case. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Don't assume it's a problem that you're a woman. Don't be humble. We talked about that earlier. Mm-hmm. Most VCs want to make at least 5 times their money in 5 to 10 years, 5 to 10 year span. If you're asking for $5 million and you have a business plan that shows that you can maybe get to $10 million in revenue over 10 years, guess what? It doesn't matter what you've worn to the meeting. Get help. If you're in a major metropolitan area, I guess there are lots of networking opportunities for entrepreneurs to get help in mentoring, maybe even sponsoring. Think as hard about your business idea. Distinguish between angel money and venture capital. I think that we're all savvy enough probably to know those differences. And then the last one was be confident. Don't apologize for your shortcomings. Emphasize the excitement around your prospective business and be ready to say how you will overcome obstacles. If you haven't been a CEO before, show them your advisory board and the rest of your management team who will compliment you, and so on. So
That's
I thought
really
Diane
good.
did a nice job.
Really good, yeah.
That's why we bought her, because she did a nice job. Once you fill out that list, we'll
Good.
buy you.
And what is her company?
Her company is Communispace, which is, I think it might be one of the largest builders of online communities at corporations. So the P&Gs and the McDonald's and the AT&Ts of the world hire Communispace to build them their communities inside that they use to bounce ideas off of, et cetera. So I think she's at about 40 or 50 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting. Boy. Okay. So, what is the number one thing that an entrepreneur should not do in pitching their company? Why don't we start with you, Kim?
Okay, let's see. I think we've sort of covered some of those elements, like the be concise, get right to the point, don't be too complex, have a very clear business model. So sort of the flip side of all of those would be, don't have a convoluted business model where you've got, maybe revenue coming from 4 different sources and it's not clear, well, where's the real market here? So make it clear, don't try to explain too much. Have basically a headline that an investor can walk away with, and with which they can explain the company to their partners.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Janet?
What's the one thing not to do?
Yeah.
I would have
I
I would think that it would be not to have a long-term plan. I mean, if you don't have a vision of who you're going to be in 5 to 10 years, then you're not ready to see a VC. So I think it has to be a clearly articulated vision with milestones along the way of how you're going to make the money that you're saying you're going to make.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Ellen?
I would say-
You really see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of these things that people shouldn't do.
I'd say the biggest one is not to be arrogant. So it kind of ties into, you want to be confident, you want to show that you know your numbers, that you're not easily swayed by a question, or you don't lose your footing when some new issue comes up. But you also don't want to come across as being, I know all the answers, I don't need your help, I'm just going to go and build my business the way I'm going to build my business. VCs want to help you. They want to feel like they're contributing, and they want to feel like they've learn some lessons that could be helpful. And if you get into a situation where you've got an entrepreneur who's thinks that they know everything and isn't going to take any feedback, that's one where you're less likely to be interested, you're less likely to feel a personal relationship with, you're less likely to want to help.
Yeah.
And we've seen, we've had a few ventures come in over the last month. One venture came in, and at the end we're like, these people they're people that I went to business school with that I don't like, right? They're the type of person I went to college with I don't want to spend time with. And that one was like, well, we'll invest, but this is the valuation and we're not going to move from it. And there's another guy, very down to earth, wanted help, easy to work with, had accomplished a lot, and it didn't really fit our model of investing, but we said, well, let's try to make something work with this guy, right? So it can push you over the edge in different situations.
This is so interesting to me, this thing about don't be arrogant, because a couple reasons. We heard Megan Smith say, or is Megan still here? No, Megan's not here, but she sees companies that Google is potentially acquiring, and she said, you have to be forceful but personable, almost cocky was the way she put it. Now that's bordering on arrogance. But she also said, the real tell, you can really tell when someone is too arrogant in the, when the investor starts asking questions.
And
I knew
fact,
this was going to fall off eventually. Let's see if I can do this.
And I think I would pick up on that, Patty, which is it's that you don't want to seem defensive, and that sort of goes to Ellen's point about if the venture partner is saying, yeah, but did you consider, or what about this other company? If you are always saying, well, no,
Right.
That's not a problem, then there's a red flag.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I did a, God, this was many years ago. This was back in 2001. I did a story about, for Fortune, about ego and how ego works in business, and that line between confidence and arrogance. And I remember I quoted Jack Welch in this story about I talked to him about ego because he had when he ran GE and still has a very big one. But he said that the line between confidence and arrogance is actually curiosity.
Yes.
It's great.
Well said.
Which he actually also says that the one thing that he feels is he felt about himself and his success in his career, the most important thing for him was his curiosity. And I think he related that to his, sort of like, okay, I'm not too arrogant, I'm continuing to be curious, but it all ties in. Mm-hmm. It all ties into this. I'm actually going to open it up right now, and we'll go back to our questions. But who has a question? And there are mics here. Yep. Wait for the mic. And identify yourself if you would.
Hi.
What? Yeah.
It's on? Okay. Hi, I'm Claudia Calvin. I'm from Mexico, and I'm working for Mujeres Construyendo, which is a platform for Spanish-speaking bloggers in Latin America, the first one.
Spanish-speaking what?
Bloggers.
Bloggers. Okay.
In Latin America. And my question is, what should you do and what shouldn't you do when you're making your pitch in a different culture?
Wow, that's interesting. Any of you have experience with that?
I think the key would be just to, I think Janet mentioned this earlier, like get feedback. So during the pitch, ask if you're going too fast, if they can understand you, ask for questions, try to read the audience and make sure that, they're with you the whole way. And if things aren't working, then, try to mix it up a little bit, try to get them engaged and make sure that they're paying attention. But it can be hard.
Huh.
Another thought is following on to that, practice your pitch with some friendlies, who are in that culture to whom you're going to be pitching, but sort of do some dry runs and don't just sort of show up to that first meeting cold. Get some early feedback from some friendly people.
Research. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was going to say I would recommend researching who you're going to be pitching as well, so you know who they are and what their interests are. Obviously, you've probably already done some of that since they've taken the meeting, but really getting to know who they are and what turns them on, I think, would be important.
You've had that experience of having to, do you have any tips?
Well, basically, what I do is do a lot of research in the culture I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be working or presenting my things. And, there are cultures where you have to give your cards with two hands, mm-hmm. and, those kind of things. But I guess research would be, from my standpoint, the first thing. But I wanted to know from your experience, what could we learn?
I don't know if Ellen from Wiley is still here. Are you here? I was talking with her today, Wiley, one of the sponsors, and we were talking about their most successful franchise, which is the Dummies franchise, and you saw the Twitter for Dummies book out there, but there are 1,000 Dummies books that have been produced, different Dummies books over the last 20 years. This is their anniversary year, but I wonder if there is entrepreneurs for dummies or entrepreneurship for dummies, I guess. But there should be something in this area, pitching different cultures for dummies.
Claudia?
Globalization for dummies. I wonder if they have that. Yeah. Okay, yes, back here.
I was just going to say, Claudia, I've done a couple of those, and the only thing I did, and I got a good feedback from it, was I said, I am in your country because this is why I think the money would come from here versus in my country where, VCs are this, the industry's this much money is being put into it. And I got good feedback. And when I got a no, I did ask why. But I had very good feedback. And I started the meeting by saying, I am in your country and I'm targeting you because of this.
That's interesting. Yeah, flatter them at the start. Seriously, yeah.
So true.
Hi, my name is Eve Friedman. My company's called Eve Echo. We're a social business. And I have a question. So being new in this kind of CEO world, and I'm eventually going to be talking to VCs at some point, and I'm just wondering if it adds value in the actual initial meeting, or at least in one of the meetings, to bring in somebody from your advisory board, somebody that could be either a mentor or somebody that sponsored you, to bring along in the initial pitch. If that degrades does that degrade you as a CEO, or diminishes you as a CEO, or does it add value?
I might do it if it were somebody who had a relationship with the VC. So it's somebody who's a good friend, and that way I come in and it's a really warm start. But generally it's a little bit, I'd rather get to know the entrepreneur. I don't really want to know an advisor. I want to get to know that person one-on-one. Would be much, you'd build a much stronger relationship than if you had somebody else who felt like they might have to show the value that they're adding to this meeting, or might detract from the accomplishments that you've made.
Yep. Whoever's next. Love seeing these hands.
Hi, Jory Desjardins, BlogHer.
Hello, Jory.
Here's my question, and I think it actually could apply to all three of you. You are in industries, or you've been with a lot of men, around a lot of men. I'm wondering, to be successful, I didn't mean it that way.
Although it's true.
In order for you to be successful, my question is, did you feel that you had to change your style, or was there something that, I'm thinking in each of your individual realms, in order to say, get VC funding from what I'm assuming were primarily male VCs, did you have to do something you normally wouldn't? In other words, like you see business this way, but you had to change your pitch a little bit because you knew your audience. In the case of Janet, you are successful among, I imagine you're the highest ranking woman at Omnicom, so there are a lot of men around. How did you, how were you able to get your point of view across and get to where you are amidst a very, perhaps a male culture? And I would say the same with you, Ellen, is how did you, you're always meeting with male entrepreneurs, and did you change your style, or are they changing their style to get funding? I'm curious to know how do you see it when you're looking at companies?
Okay, I'll kick it off. No, the answer is no. I never changed my style. I never even think about the fact that I'm a woman. My whole background is technology, biophysics, computer science, so I'm used to being one of the few women in the room, inherently. And it's always the last thing that I think of. In fact, I never think about it unless I'm reminded of it by somebody. So no, and my advice would be, do not change your style. Be who you are, because an investor wants to see the genuine individual, not someone who feels like they have to adjust to whoever else is in the room.
And I would say that, it's interesting, over the last few years I've spoken a lot at women conferences, et cetera, and this question has come up quite a bit. And what's interesting is I've reflected on it, and I think to myself, if I had more women in my business life, would I have been a different woman today? Because obviously I grew up in my business life around men. So I am bawdy. I've got a mouth like a sailor. I've got, I do think about what I dress. I am very aware of my femaleness, and I celebrate it every day. And I like being a woman amongst men, and I like bringing other women in now and having a bigger voice. So I don't think I've ever changed. I don't think I've ever, really thought about it. But I think I'm probably a different kind of woman as a result of the experience I've had for the last 30 years. And I think that's what has made it easiest for coming through Omnicom, coming through DDB, for people and especially male bosses to sponsor me and to say yes to my ascension. So I think I live and breathe being a woman every day with, woohoo! It's been okay. It's been an all right ride.
So I'd say that I had to change my style a little bit. I don't know if it's a because I'm a woman, I'm more of an introvert, I'm not a self-promoter, and that's something that is more necessary in the VC world than it has been in my previous job. So that's something that I've been working on. It's also really, I call our firm like interrupt-driven. So people are constantly interrupting other people, and you really can't get in. And that's the piece where I've really had to learn to, I was taught, be respectful, wait till people finish talking. It's kind of, a nice thing to do, but we don't do that. So it's really trying to figure out how you get into the gaps and feel a little more comfortable just being more aggressive in getting airtime.
I'm going to answer this as a journalist who has covered powerful women over the last 15 years. We put these women who really succeed in the spotlight, and we put them on the pedestal, and then they become targets, and when they fail bigger because they're up there, they're in the spotlight. And I mean, you know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about, Carly Fiorina, and, when Meg Whitman ran for governor, I mean, she couldn't make a move that, it's like amplified. And hey, as a journalist, I'm one of the sort of, accuse me, go ahead but, I like to think that net what we're doing by spotlighting amazing women, and, 95% of them are role models for, younger women. And I like to think that, but, there's a theory called the glass cliff, which is that companies seeking diversity goals put women into positions ahead of, like, sort of the Peter principle, ahead of their readiness for the job. And it happened with a woman named Erin Callan, who was the CFO of Lehman Brothers. And I did a profile of her about a year ago, big profile. And she's a good example of the glass cliff. I mean, I don't know if anybody at Lehman Brothers, any CFO of Lehman Brothers could have saved the company, but she was not ready for this job. And she was Lehman really, really, really wanted to put a woman into a senior management position. It would be good for Wall Street. It would be good for the industry. I always think of a quote that Carly Fiorina told me many, many years ago when she was still at HP. When I asked her, how do you think about power? And she answered, my strength is my strength, but it can also be a weakness. It's a double-edged sword. Mm-hmm. And you heard people talk about the Heidi Roizen story about, if you don't know it, look it up, Heidi and Howard Roizen being judged, women and men being judged differently. There is a narrower band of acceptable behavior. So anyway, we could go on and on about that. Ellen, I would just like to ask you, I'm very curious, in the course of a year, how many pitches for different companies do you see? How many come back a second time, and how many do you invest in?
So I'll say for our whole digital practice, we've got about, 8 partners in our digital practice. We see maybe 2,000 business plans. We'll either, dig deeper, have a call, or meet with 200 of the entrepreneurs, and then maybe we'll bring 20 up for investment decision, and we'll invest in, I guess, like 10 to 15.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. 2,220 up for investment decision, and then actually the hit rate becomes, you have a better than a 50-50 chance of getting money.
People won't bring it to a big, full partnership meeting unless they've done their homework and they feel really passionately about it, and they've tested a little bit.
Huh. And what makes or breaks a company between that 20 up for? Is that the investment committee? Is that what is that called?
Or it's our partnership.
So partnership, yeah. So, and how many people are evaluating at that point?
that would be 8 to 10 people.
8 to 10 people. And what makes or breaks a company between the partnership evaluation and, actually getting money, getting funding? I mean, is there anything in particular that?
It's, a lot of it is what's the confidence that the team can go after this market? Is the market big enough? Are they on the path to having a business model, or have they proven out their business model? Does the valuation make sense? It's just a variety of the typical things that kind of funnel the plan through the whole process.
Mm-hmm. Do any of you have a sort of favorite mistakes that you have made personally in your career that has to do with that this group can relate to, or just a great story, a telling story about, oh my God, this happened and this is it's good it wasn't you, and there's a lesson here. And it doesn't have to be something that you did. It can be something that you saw.
Well, one area I would say that I've seen, and I'm not sure I can give you a story per se here, but I'll maybe give an example, it's the business model. It's falling in love with your business model and then forgetting the rest of the market, and everything's changing constantly around you and evolving, and oftentimes entrepreneurs get really stuck on their business model. So, well, in the case of Marimba, we had to reinvent our business model a few times because the market was moving so quickly, and also, in fact, we were ahead of the market in many ways, but also the market was evolving, and we had to explain our company in the context of other companies that were out there. So I guess the point is, don't be afraid to start at zero all over again and question every single assumption that you've made about your business model. And at Marimba, we did that several times, and I'm glad we did it, because if we hadn't, we would have fallen off basically the map and ended up not being able to seize the market. In our case, we ended up competing with IBM, and in fact, we kind of had to take our product and, in a sense, slow down our ambition to get to the next level because the market wasn't there yet. And there was a competitor that we already knew we could beat. It was IBM in this particular space, systems management. And so we ended up framing the company in the context of that, which was kind of more maybe boring and pedestrian than we would have wanted. But in fact, that was what it took to be successful.
Okay.
Early on in my career, I learned that if you don't walk in with a few yeses in your pocket, then you're going to fail.
And a few yeses?
Yeah, so let me just give you so early on in my career, I was running co-ops with owner-operators. And they would have meetings where everybody had an equal vote. And we would do simple majority. 51% would vote on programs that we were recommending. So we were pitching them once a month on ideas that we had. And I had a failure rate that was a little excessive. And I didn't quite get why until somebody finally taught me that have you not spoken with anybody in that room? Have you not walked into that room with people already sold on the idea?
Oh, wow.
And from that moment in my life, no matter what I'm doing, because we do pitch a lot, no matter what I'm doing, I will always have a conversation with a few people and bring them into my tent.
Wow.
And get them to understand what I'm doing. So when I walk in, I am confident that I have a few advocates in the audience in front of me.
You're talking about pitching clients now.
Clients, that's right.
That's really interesting, which is not that much different from pitching investors.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, we got to wrap this up, but Ellen, any thoughts on this?
I'd say that there were a lot of opportunities that I didn't take advantage of. Oftentimes you'll meet somebody and they'll say, oh, let's get lunch again, and you'll feel like, well, they're so busy, I don't want to bother them, and you don't take advantage of it. And looking back, there were so many opportunities where I could have, built a relationship that I didn't, and those are the ones where I feel like I've made big mistakes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, gosh, there's so much more I want to. You know what? I'm gonna indulge and take one more minute here, and I would like. This is really fast. This is quicker than an elevator ride. The one trend in technology that you see that is not particularly obvious that you think is, important for this group to think about. Just name it, and we'll wrap it up and move on to the next session. Who wants to start?
I don't know how applicable it is because it's a global trend that we're seeing, and that is the adoption of technology by the women of the emerging economies of the world and how quickly they're adopting it. And I think that there is application here in the U.S. for emerging economies in the U.S. of women, minority women, African American, Latina, etc. But I think it's a really fascinating trend, and it speaks volumes about community and freedom and looking for connections.
Okay, good. That's interesting. Mm-hmm.
Well, one area that I actually find very interesting is the consumer credit market. I've been working on a startup in this area, and this is an example of a market that's completely broken and where regulation is not going to fix it. Innovation is, I think, going to be critical to basically resurrecting.
Credit, what do you mean by consumer credit?
People be able to have a financially sustainable lifestyle, being able to get your way out of debt, dig your way out of debt. There are 100 million Americans who have long-term revolving credit card debt and at paying very high interest rates. Well, more regulation isn't going to fix that. Innovation, I believe, is going to fix that. And I've seen a number of early-stage companies in this space recently that I'm very excited about.
Interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Ellen?
I think there's becoming a return to accountability, and I don't know if Janet agrees with me, but it seems like a lot of the companies that we work with that sell to media, the media is interested in getting direct results. So a lot more for actual action than eyeballs, and I think that's a big trend that's kind of starting to see ripples in other areas as well.
Thank you. I wish this could go on for about 15, 20 minutes longer, but it's been great. And Kim, Janet, Ellen, thanks. And I'm going to stay up here and introduce the next group.
Thanks, Patty.
So the next session is I'm going to sit back. I'm not going to ask any questions. I'm just going to, or maybe I'll fit in a question or two. But anyway, I'm just going to introduce some women who are some pairs, some duos, who can talk about what they do and help you all do what you do even better. And the first is Sharon Vosmek, CEO of Astia, and Astia graduate Jennifer, she told me how to say this, Zezit. Zezit of Lithium.
Do you want to stay up here while I talk? Good. Is this on now? I've turned it on. I don't do podiums well. Somewhere there's a slide deck. I also don't do slide decks well, so we're going to have to figure this out. But I think there's one coming on. Am I right? Yeah, that's not me. I'm Astia. Big old A-S-T-I-A. Good. So I am Sharon Vosmek, and I'm supposed to inspire you and share resources with you. What I do best is not speak to slides. It's actually speak to people individually. So I promise to leave plenty of business cards. I think I'm going to keep going. So I have on this fantastic slide deck that you're now looking at, reasons for you to care and reasons. That's not the right slide. You got to back up. No, you got to back up. I hate slides. Okay, I'm in control now. Okay, so a reason for you to care about me and listen to what I have to say. Somewhere these slides move. So I did an assessment of our portfolio in the last year. Astia currently has 247 companies in our portfolio. In the last year, we had this amazing fundraising happening, over $900 million raised just in the last 12 months. We had amazing exits that also should make it relevant and interesting to you, just the last 12-month window. And we also had some great influence happening within the market, some fantastic conversations as it relates to women entrepreneurs, women in the market, women in influential positions. We also are part of a much larger movement that's happening in the market, which is over 45 organizations globally taking a look at where women are as it relates to high-growth entrepreneurship. Where are they as entrepreneurs? Where are they as investors? Where are they in the ecosystem? And how can we have impact and influence? Our portfolio just in the last 12 months, also some amazing game changers that hopefully you'll get to know going forward. We think we have some of the next greats in our portfolio. So what are we? We are over 1,000 individuals around the globe committed to the success of high-growth companies that have managed to package innovation in at an early stage. And what we look at when we look for innovation are large market opportunity, amazing technology approaching that, and a team that has figured out an inclusive strategy at the early days. That means they've got women and men on board. So that you saw is men and women. Astia is actually a representation of, I love how the slides just keep going. That's great. It's a great representation of what we believe the next iteration of innovation is, which is men and women together creating businesses, investing in those businesses, growing those businesses, and generating wealth and influence for the members of the founding team. So what I actually am very anxious to do is to showcase what we do via one of our entrepreneurs. Jenny was actually on that earlier slide that I couldn't make stop, which was one of the exits this year. Her company, Scout Labs, came to Astia at an interesting time, and I'm going to let her speak to that. But what I'd like you to be able to hear and know about my relationship with Jenny is that it's a perfect example of what it takes to succeed in business. You heard from this outstanding panel that there is really not a glass ceiling anymore as it relates to high-growth startups. What there is an opportunity to build relationships that can deliver investment and can deliver business growth. But relationships is the key. And today in the US, men and women are in separate business networks. And today in the US, 95% of investors are men. So there's your pressure point. Jenny and I are a great example of a relationship that you develop. We're not the cross-gender one, but we are a relationship. She's left her company, and I will continue to engage with Jenny, find out where she's going next. She will be relevant in my ecosystem, and she certainly is an influencer in yours, someone to know. So Jenny, I'm going to actually let you speak to Astia and what it was for you, and I'm going to be quiet for a little while.
Thank you, thank you. Is this one on, or should I do this? I'll do this, it looks cooler. So today I heard a lot of conversation about hurdles and challenges and rejections. I don't really know what any of you guys are talking about. I was a first-time CEO and everything was going great. So my story started with basically a lunch with a billionaire. I told him my idea and he wrote a check for $2 million. Oh my Piece God. Of cake. I don't know why everyone says this is so hard. Started a company, totally great, like world's best brands, all signing up. It's just totally awesome. I'm like, this is so easy. Why didn't I do this sooner? So then it was right around then when someone saw me on a panel and said, oh my gosh, we need to get you in this organization called Astia. And I'm like, oh my God, how cute, helping like women who need help. And it's sure, like as a favor to Gwen, I was like, fine, I'll help you. So as a part of Astia, I got assigned investors as mentors and as coaches. I was assigned legal help. I was assigned marketing strategists to help with my go-to-market. I was assigned coaches to help with my presentation, with my pitch deck, with all of this awesome stuff. And so when it came down time to actually go for my my Series B, I did a presentation at the Astia, what was it called at the time? Anyway, the Astia has an event that brings in tons and tons of venture capital into the room that gets you up on stage to be able to pitch your idea. Totally hit it out of the park. Actually had, within 72 hours, I think, I secured my Series B funding. Oh no. Totally. And of course, Astia did help, but of course it's just mostly because I'm awesome. So that was still really nice that Astia was there. But so it really wasn't until all of the nightmares that is going to happen to every single startup finally caught up with me that I truly realized the value of what I had there. So let's see, that Series B that I secured within 72 hours, it was during the credit crunch when that investor basically went bankrupt and told me 2 weeks before I launched that it wasn't coming. Let's see, I had been paying my rent regularly and dutifully to someone who is subletting from another person, and I guess he wasn't paying the bills. And so when we showed up at work, they said, sorry, you haven't been paying the bills, and therefore you're locked out and your entire company is not accessible anymore. We're a software as a service business that has 500 of the world's biggest brands as clients. We cannot shut down. And literally we had to gather up in our arms as much as we could carry, and our entire company had to make a run for the doors to overpower the security guards because there were more of us than there were of them, and that was the only way to get our laptops out to keep the company running. I obviously could not pay any of my employees. They kept their chairs.
I'm interrupt you here. I hate to do this, but what was the company? What were you doing? And how many employees are we talking about? Does that matter?
Scout Labs, real-time social media analysis, data analysis for the world's best brands. So Twitter and Facebook and blogs and forums and everything that consumers are generating indexed in one place and analyzed in real time. Here's what people really love right now about your product or your brand. Here's feedback. Here's what they wish you would change, so on and so forth. It's amazing. It's a great idea. It's a great company. Great product. There you go.
Good. Okay. Go.
Back to
the story.
My story of how it all caught up with me. So yes, we did have to make a run for the doors. Of course, all of this was when I was 9 months plus pregnant. I think I was like, my baby was 2 weeks late because he was like, Mama, come on, you got to keep this company going. So such a good boy. So it really wasn't until then that it was kind of like, oh my God, I couldn't pay my employees. They kept their chairs 1 month. They got their laptops another month. I gave them their monitors another month. And for some reason, they kept taking money out of their 401ks to pay nannies to keep coming into work saying, Jen, don't worry, we think you're going to figure it out. But it was really then when the network of Astia, like I really almost fell off that horse. Like I don't really know how or why I continued to go on. It was pretty bad. But it was then when this network of mentors and coaches who had been with me the entire time kind of rose up and got me back on that horse and strapped me in and made available meetings with VCs and phone calls and support and took my crying calls at 1 o'clock in the morning like, oh my God, what am I going to do? All of those things, that network was there for me. And we secured funding from 2 solvent, good companies that had actual money. And within 6 months, for some reason, our customers never noticed these little glitches behind the scenes. And the business kept growing like crazy. And within 6 months, we sold our company, which was just last summer, which was a great exit for all. And I made lots of little millionaires within my company, those people who took money out of their 401ks to stick with me. So I guess the lesson is don't ever assume that you have enough help and that you've got really good people around you. You never know who or what is going to help you kind of put that over the edge. And you just need to over-index on support and mentors and help. And of course, I am starting another one. I just left my company, the acquiring company, yesterday, and I will be starting another one. And absolutely, those same people and those coaches and mentors from Astia are helping me figure out which one to do, because I want to do 3. They may be funding. They're certainly making introductions, and it's amazing how full service this has ended up becoming for me. So yes, be cocky, but just know that there will be a rainy day or like a downpour, and you need to think about it in advance and make sure you got your network ready to go. Thanks.
Wow.
I like her. But that tells you what Astia is. I always have a hard time really getting down to what Astia is. You know, you can call us a venture accelerator. You can call us a community. But at the end of the day, it's really a powerful tool to grow your business. And, you know, these slides don't do justice to all the people involved, but some of the numbers do justice to the people involved. We, as I said, have over 1,000 volunteer community members that work with the companies. They're investors, they're serial entrepreneurs, been there, done that people that just out of the give back within themselves, give back to entrepreneurs. We've worked with thousands of companies around the globe, but in particular, we're most proud of those that fit into Jenny's League, which are those that qualify for our portfolio. And for those companies, we stay with them for life. You're having a baby, we might have an advisor that can help you through it. And certainly we have Jenny now within our community as one of those people that has experienced all of those things and can share and give back. We have, recently it was pointed out to me by a journalist, a higher success rate than Y Combinator, which I like that a journalist told me that, but greater than 60% of the companies that qualify as Jenny did for our portfolio achieve funding or an exit within 1 year of joining Astia. We believe that that's a direct result of two things. Number one, the community chooses the companies, the community invests in the companies, the community makes sure they succeed. But two, we do know that women-led companies, companies with a women on the executive teams, outperform their male counterparts. And we're just tapping on into that and riding that train home. So that's Astia, and we're really delighted to be here today. Lisa, thank you for having us.
Sharon, I actually just have a question. So what is your business model? How do you make money?
We have to make money too? Oh, good. We have a really straightforward business model. We are a nonprofit, but we have a business model. People sometimes confuse the two. Number one is our sponsors. 1/3 of our revenues come from corporations like Microsoft that believe that inclusive ecosystems in the high-growth entrepreneurial space matters. And they invest in us from an ROI perspective. We're working with companies that they want to acquire, they want to be near innovation, and they certainly want to see diverse deal flow. Number two, we have this fantastic philanthropic investment from the Kaufman Foundation, which has invested hugely in Astia, as well as the Althea Foundation and the Three Guineas Foundation. That philanthropic investment, though, is truly investment. We're looking to put ourselves out of business within 10 years, resolve the problem, mainstream the conversation, Astia gets to go away. And the third revenue stream is of equal importance, and that's from our clients. We actually charge the clients a fee, and it's not cheap. It's $250 to apply. It is $5,000 if you qualify for Astia, and 1% of the company. We believe that that's important to the business model on two fronts. Number one, I assure you, if you write that check, you'll commit properly to the community that she just talked about. Number two, it is an important component that our business is actually invested in by the companies we're working with. We are wealth generating, innovation creating, and influence creating. That's not an area that needs to be subsidized. And you women know you don't need subsidy, you need opportunity. And that's what we're trying to do.
That's fascinating. Thank you so much. That was really interesting. Boy. Hey, Jen, are you willing to say what you may be moving into?
No.
No. Okay. I'm a journalist. I just ask the questions. Okay, Shaharose Sharania,
Yes.
CEO of Women 2.0, and oh my gosh, Raisa. Wait, hold on.
Slide.
Test.
Raisa, you're going to have to introduce yourself with your last name.
My name is Raisa Nebi.
Wonderful. Okay.
So, growth, super important, and Sharon, a big partner of ours. So my name is Shaharose. I am the founder of Women 2.0, and we're at the start of growth. So it's important to grow your business, but it's also important to get started. And Women 2.0 is a community for female founders to get started. On Tuesday, we spun out something that we started last year, which is what we're going to talk about right now, called Founder Labs. And Founder Labs is essentially something that we like to think of as a pre-incubator. So if you have an idea, maybe you don't have an idea. You have a team, maybe you don't have a team. You just really are getting started. And Founder Labs is something where Raisa came in and is now what we say has gone from clueless to funding, is something that's rapid fire, quick, and just sort of gets you in the game. And the reason we do Founder Labs is because we've been running Women 2.0 for 5 years now. And the number one questions that were coming up were, well, how do I find my co-founder? Is my idea any good? And that's exactly what we address. So there's a company that you don't even know yet because their website probably isn't even up, and it's called TetherPad. And they're basically doing mobile apps for the travel space. There's another company called Miko, House of Miko. You not have heard of that either. They're just getting started, and they're doing a beauty recommendation engine for women. There's another company called Cake Health that you've not heard of either. And they're doing mobile apps for the healthcare space for you to better manage your health insurance and your health and all this really fun stuff. And there's a company that you're going to hear about right now called Spoon Date that you probably haven't heard of either. So you can see how we're very early, and we want to help people like you who are thinking, hey, I want to start something, but where do I start? So Founder Labs is really quick. 5 weeks. The room is filled with highly selective people, usually about 20 people. It's actually, just like Astia, half male, half female. And they're usually people coming in who have done something already, maybe a startup or worked in a startup, or worked in banking and have something to bring to the table, but want to start a company. And of the 20 people, there are 10 engineers, 5 designers, 5 business people, and they just come into the room and they forget everything else. So usually they keep their day jobs, but they can't do anything else because they're with us evenings and weekends, prototyping, talking to customers, and just getting going on their startup. And so there's a story to be told here about someone who went from Clueless to funding from Raisa because she did come into the program where she was like, okay, I have an idea. I don't have a team. Let's go. And what we've done, particularly with Founder Labs, is focus very squarely on diversity. Diversity, gender, diversity of experience. But on the other end of the diversity, we're focused on a specific industry that we think is going to blow up that this wonderful lady here from Omnicom, and I'm forgetting her name. Janet, sorry. No, it wasn't Janet. Forget me. I forgot who it was. The mobile space, right? How women are adopting mobile. And so it's not about women in mobile. It's just about the whole entire space of mobile, which is, bigger than web, by 10 times. So if we want to get into big markets, just like Sharon said, we want women to go into big markets, we're focusing on mobile. So does that make sense? Do you understand what we do? Awesome. So I'm going to stop talking and give you the floor to Raisa.
Hi, my name's Raisa. I hope everyone's having a good time today. When Sharon says that we're clueless, well, excuse me, she's totally understating it. So I worked in banking previously, thought I knew everything. I worked for 6 years, hated my job, quit, went to culinary school, and I thought I wanted to open a restaurant. So I left the country, moved to Paris. I was working in a high-end restaurant when the light bulb came on. I was like, oh my God, I love food, but I hate being trapped in a dungeon. I want to do something that connects people through food. So went home, went on Craigslist, said, hey, I'm moving to San Francisco. I don't know what's going to happen there, but I know there's Silicon Valley, lots of engineers, so you throw a rock, you'll hit someone who can code. So I get on the plane, start typing a business plan, pimp out my resume, and get to Silicon Valley. I'm like, oh my God, okay, so I'm going to go pimp myself to people. I work in banking. I went to business school, so I can do this. Like, hey, here's my resume. Oh, what's a resume? Who cares? So I want to start a company. I don't know where to start. Somebody sends me a link to Women 2.0. I'm like, hey, it sounds really cool. I need a co-founder. I've been networking. It's really hard. It's harder to find a co-founder than to find a husband because you're married to that person. I'm with my co-founder all the time. He sees me more than he sees his wife. So I started the program with my super cool idea, hey, I'm going to start a mobile app that helps you find people at a restaurant you can eat with. Who cares? I mean, the good thing about Women 2.0 is that, I came with an idea thinking it was so awesome. Most entrepreneurs start with selfish ideas. It was something that I wanted for myself, and where I failed was to identify a problem that I wanted to solve. So I took that idea, and under the guidance of lots of advisors like Eric Ries, Steve Blank, I validated that idea. And I learned that I don't need to build technology to validate that idea. I went out, I got out of the building and talked to people, talked about my idea, learned to find out whether people cared about that idea without leading them, because the problem with ideas is that you get so married to your idea that you want people to tell you the answers that you're longing for, and that's just the wrong way to start a business. So I went, and what I was looking for is people who either loved my idea or totally hated it. If you love it, I love it. If you hate it, tell me why you hate it so I can learn how to make you like that idea. So we went through the program during 5 weeks and learned tons. I learned to detach myself from the idea. I learned to validate that idea without wasting resources. And adopted very scrappy techniques that enable me to get results in very quick and short time. So I went through the program. When I finished, I was like, hey, I really want to move forward with this. I met Van, who's my co-founder. We worked really well together. He had a really good job hyping engineering job, but he liked the idea, and because we went through the program, we were able to vet that idea. We got the support of our advisors and the people who want to see that product come to life. And he made the leap, and we got together, and with the support of Shy Rose and the organization, we went to pitch Dave McClure, and we got funded. So as of 2 months ago, we're a funded company, and we're working. Our product should be launching in about 2 weeks on April 6th. So if you're single, if you like food, or if you just want to meet people, go to spoondate.com and you can
just explain, because I've read about it, but explain a little bit about exactly how it works.
So, okay, here's the deal. Online, everybody wants to date. Nobody wants to be single. It really sucks. But online dating is broken. I mean, it makes you look desperate. Most people are embarrassed to be online. First, who's single here? Yeah. Who dates online? You won't because, or if you don't, it's because it's not socially accepted. There's a stigma attached to it. So, exactly, usability sucks. And people want to meet, and usually you meet through friends, family, you meet at gatherings. So we want to make it easy. Just, take away that pressure and meet someone over something you enjoy. And for us, that's food. So it doesn't have to be complicated. We're organized group dinners where you can meet singles, and they're curated dinners that cater to people who like food. So you can have a beer and burgers tasting, or wine, or, a cookie class, or you can say what you're craving. Hey, I'm craving tapas at La Lola, and then somebody can meet up with you and go have that dinner or that lunch with you. So it's a really simple and easy way to meet people and have a meal with that person. It's invitation only for now, so you can email me at raisa@spoondate.com if you'd like to get invited. But it will be subscription-based. The early month will be free for those who have early access, and over time we'll be charging a monthly fee, a freemium sort of model.
Any questions?
Yes, Lisa?
Yeah, we're starting in San Francisco. This is a service that sort of appeals to city dwellers. So food is a big market, so we want to take a small bite at a time. So starting with San Francisco, validate the formula here, and then export it to New York and other metropolitan areas. But the online service itself, where you can meet with people individually, that can be exported to other city before the local dining services. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. I don't know if this is information you can share here, but when you say that the company you receive investment or support, how much is that for this particular company?
So I can tell you a little bit. So we got invested by 500 startups, and their typical commitment is 50 to 100K. And so what we got was within that range.
And what is the company again?
Spoondate.
No, I'm sorry, no.
500 startups.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So besides learning to detach yourself from your idea, what else did you learn in the Founders Lab?
I learned to never stop learning, do more faster. Actually, that's a book by Brad Feld. He was one of the advisors. So while so we pretty much tested the idea on paper. So instead of building crazy technology, I drew everything on paper, and I would go to random places and have people click. Okay, so what do you think of when you get to the screen? What's your emotion? So what would you do next? People would click, and you click, I remove the page, and you go to the next page. So instead of wasting time and resources, I manually tested everything. So that's for the web interface. And also for the dining services, I don't need technology to set people up on dates. So people fill out taste profiles. I use the Google form. I matched them up. They went out on dates. And then I organized dinners where people got together, a bunch of strangers, and they liked it. Actually, Adria over there was one of the spoon daters.
All right. All right.
Yeah, and she liked it. She gave really great reviews. She wants to come back, and that's the feedback that we got from a bunch of people. So we're looking forward to it. We have close to 1,000 people who've signed up, never done any marketing. We don't know who these people are, but there's a hunger for this. And
literally a hunger.
And we've never talked to a person about Spoon Date, and then the person didn't sign up. So there's confidence that there's a need and a want for that, and we're really excited to bring it to the market.
So what she's explaining, for those of you who didn't maybe catch on, is this concept of customer development and lean startup practices. And that's what Founder Labs is rooted in, for you to actually go out, talk to customers. Don't invest in technology till you know there's a customer that's actually going to buy your product. And that's a really important lesson that I learned the hard way, because I've worked at startups, and I knew we needed this feature, and so we spent 6 months building it. We launched it, and no one cared. So we don't want people to make the same mistakes. And if you look this up, there's something called customer development, and one of our advisors, his name is Steve Blank, and he's involved in teaching Raisa directly, how do you do customer development? So you're actually learning what customers want before they build it. And on the technical side, what Van would do was rapid prototyping, so that he would put out products, or features, not products, but features almost every day or every week. And that's important for him to recognize, oh, there's not a full cycle where she's going to write out a product requirements document, sit there, read it, and then put something out. No, let's just put something out, let's measure the results, and then let's test it. So those are important things just for you to understand.
Yeah, and something I would add is test every assumption. I mean, because usually startups, people have these crazy ideas that they think are awesome, and you go and build something that nobody cares about. It might be cute, it's a nice feature, people get excited about it, but it's never sticky. So everything from copy to features to technology is fully tested. Before I place any word on the website, I test it through surveys, through asking people. We have a bunch of colors for the design that's being finalized. I was at a cafe till 1 a.m. a few nights ago asking customers to choose a color and asking them why they picked that color. So we don't put anything without testing it, and I think that's making a huge difference. Our ideas morphed tremendously from the beginning to what it is today. And
Shaharose, let me just ask you before we move on to the next group, what this Founder Lab, when Raisa was in the lab, 5 weeks, how many other people were in there with her?
Sure. So the whole group is 20, and each group has 4 people on the team. So on her team, there were 2 engineers and 1 designer and herself, a business marketing person. So that's and the teams are formed organically in the first week. So they don't even know each other, and they need to get to know each other really quickly. And it's like your first day at school, and you kind of decide, who do I want to work with for the next 5 weeks? Who do I want to ideally be my future co-founder? And there's serendipity involved. Not all the teams succeed. Not all the teams stick together.
And your partner, you're the CEO, and your partner, this guy, is the what? The president?
Yes, he's COO and tech co-founder.
For her company, yeah.
Right.
Her CTO, yeah.
And was he in your group that you found the first day?
Yeah, so the way it works, the first day we all get together, mix and mingle, and you pitch your idea. And I kind of got swarmed by a bunch of people with my idea. So for me, it was an easy pick who I wanted to work with. So we sort of naturally gravitated towards each other, and we started working together.
And are all 5 who are part of? Are they all with you now, or?
No, 2 of us.
Just 2 of you.
The awesome part of Women 2.0 is that it's to really test if this is for you. So it's a safe way to validate whether you, as a person, are prepared to become an entrepreneur. So he and I were ready to make that leap.
Good.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Good luck. Boy, good luck
Thank
with
you.
it. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, Jan Schaefer, Executive Director of JLab, and Michelle Ferrier, Elon University School of Communications, and proprietor, locallygrownnews.com.
Very good, thanks. Wow, we work in the micro space, and I think a lot of our people who we identify need to be hooked up with some of the people in Founders Lab. We run a program called the McCormick New Media Women Entrepreneurs, and essentially we give awards, micro awards, 12,000, to allow women entrepreneurs to sort of get a prototype or launch their project that we then hope they can leverage into other areas. And I think that We give $12,000 in startup funding and ask that they launch their project within 10 months after they make a pitch to us. We have had more than 1,500 proposals for funding in the last 3 years. We have an RFP in the field right now, and out of that we've funded 10 projects. And we are in the space that is what we call news and information space. So we're really looking for projects that are addressing some kind of news or information gap. Not necessarily big J journalism, but something that will give you credible news and information. One of our so far early successes this last round was ChicksRx. It's a medical site for women in the 25 to 35 age range that love the site. They actually advertise on Craigslist to hire a comedian to write their headlines. So you get headlines that say things like "Tame the Yeast" or "Oral Sex is Bittersweet." But they have raised $400,000 in angel investing, and I think they're still in beta right now. Another site is Arts and Culture Sites for New Orleans that is in partnership with the Times-Picayune newspaper down there. They are supporting themselves with funding from local arts organizations. We help them negotiate a prenup agreement with the newspaper in case it doesn't work out. InvestigativeMommyBlogger.com is Kelby Carr's effort to sort of help report stories on chain restaurants, children's meals, daycare stories, and things like that. A very interesting project that's this year, they're about to launch their site, is a group of women who have teens addicted to drugs or alcohol. And they are now creating a news and information site that is addressing intervention points, resources, paid consulting with experts, toolkits where you can have informational meetings on what to do if this is happening. And they're seeding this right now with a blog of parents talking about their experiences. And the blogs will soon transfer into a website and a documentary film. We have Latina Voices, which is a Chicago project to help with Latina women writers, and a really interesting mobile Black History app done by Retha Hill. She's a director of the New Media Innovation Lab at Arizona State. She's gotten data from 9 cities right now that is an augmented reality application where you can just click your phone wherever city you're in one of the 9 cities and find out not just well-known Black history, but very little-known Black history. And I think she's got media partners lined up to help her support that, and maybe some commercial sponsors as well. As I mentioned, we have an RFP in the field right now. I raised money from the McCormick Foundation to fund this, and we're looking to grow this, and I think they're going to grow it a little next year, and we'll grow it some more after that, to try to make the pot a little bigger and try to provide a little more technical assistance for some of the women that we have. Clearly the demand is there, and I think our incentive for really starting this is noticing that there was a disproportionate number of women departing from traditional newsrooms, and there were some of the more creative women around, and looking for a way to sort of capture those talents in another part of the news ecosystem. So Michelle is one of our awardees, and she's actually got a franchise idea that she is starting to roll out, and I'll let her go from here.
Great. My name is Michelle Ferrier, and as Jan said, I was an awardee about 2 years ago with the New Media Women Entrepreneurs. I'm also an associate professor at Elon University, but I've also been a serial entrepreneur during my career in and out of academe. And what I'm looking at doing with locally grown news is a couple of things, as Jan mentioned. The original idea for a women's community news franchise is what I pitched to the McCormick Foundation. It came out of my team for an online community that I ran at a local newspaper being riffed after I left to go into an academic position less than a week after I'd left. And I said, what can I do to help other women and other people who are leaving legacy media jobs and find a way for them to take their talents and their skills and grow them in their communities, because that's what they love. And so I pitched the Women's Community News franchise, focusing specifically on women and focusing on news and information franchises in their communities. what I did over the 10 months or so before we launched was to look for a conversation. I'd been in conversations, conferences, etc., with lots of bloggers, lots of people that were doing place blogging or hyper-local blogging and doing news and information and trying to replicate what the local newspaper had done that had died in their community, or to fill a gap, and they were killing themselves. And I said, what if we could create a system that would support them in the venture that they were trying to do? So let them do the news and information that they wanted to do, help them with technology, help them with marketing, help them with advertising efforts, and get them off the ground. I realized that in those efforts, there were people that needed to start a little bit smaller. Instead of trying to cover City Hall and trying to cover the police beat and trying to cover education and trying to cover all these large areas that it took major organizations years and lots of people to be able to do, and typically we were looking at teams of maybe 1 or 2 people, that what we wanted to try and do was to start with a conversation that was a little bit smaller, that they could grow into over time. And I looked around and looked at education and looked at mommy bloggers and looked at other different types of ways in which people had entered this space and decided I was going to focus in on local food as a movement. There was a lot of growing interest and concern in that area, especially with our food supply, tainted food supply, people wondering where their food was coming from. So if we could, well, the video, I think we clipped. I lost my clicker here. I have a short video to show you a little bit about the site. And then I want to talk a little bit about what's happened in the year, almost year since I launched.
At one time in America, the town center was the place for gathering, sharing information, and connecting with neighbors to hear the news of the day. But today, the new hub of conversation is the local farmers market, and the tool for sharing is food. Local food is the niche for an online community cooperative called LocallyGrownNews.com. In Greensboro and Winston-Salem in North Carolina, this citizen journalism initiative has ignited communities around food, local economies, and sustainability issues. LocallyGrownNews.com has built a hunger for good, hyper-local information around growing the places we call home.
Local food has obviously a lot of economic benefits. You know, it's more nutrition than food that's trucked from a long way away. It employs local farmers. It keeps local green space. Has a lot of local impacts. But one of the major things it does for us is it breaks down these barriers about where our food comes from, connects us to our place. And I think if we're connected to our place, our relationship with our place and our neighbors is going to be richer and just have more character.
Food can be one of the sort of tools used to engage neighborhood conversation and invention and collaboration.
Patch.com, Village Soup, and other national groups have created technology platforms. None has combined the technology with a content niche as powerful as local food. The site is supported by revenue from advertising and sponsorships. We've also built a unique self-service classified system and are in development on a mobile widget for a robust marketplace. Our team is made up of seasoned experts in content, technology, marketing, and online enterprises. Michelle Ferrier is a digital content architect and professor of new media. Bill Ostendorf of Creative Circle designs online platforms for legacy media organizations. Inner Eye Studios of Winston-Salem is a designer and mobile application boutique. In addition, LocallyGrownNews.com has a team of writers passionate about building community relationships from the ground up.
There was a time, of course, when the Journal and the Sentinel had an agricultural page, but those days are long gone, so that niche really will need to be filled, at least in the foreseeable future, by some kind of citizen journalism, and given the cost of publication nowadays, the internet is probably the only economically feasible way for it to be done, so bravo for the people who are doing it.
Okay, so this was a pitch, a video that I pitched to a contest to get support, get money. As Jan says, most of the ventures that come through JLab are very, very initial startup. One of the questions I wanted to ask the panel was, okay, so before you get a venture capitalist or an angel involved, how do you raise the money to even be able to get some of those proof of concept ideas done and out the door? And thankfully, JLab was there to be able to provide some of that initial funding. In the almost a year since we launched, it's been since April, May last year that we launched Locally Grown News. I've had a dual role, one of kind of building a brand and a business, and then also in recruiting and looking for other women to take this idea as a kind of cooperative franchise and build the similar ventures in their own communities. I had an epiphany about January of this year, as I had been recruiting about 3 women to help grow this, and 2 in North Carolina and actually another 2 in Florida, and was working with them in terms of developing the concept, et cetera, and talking to them about what they liked and what they wanted to do and how we might be able to help them. And what I found was that I was operating out of that guilt that I'd started the business with. That problem. Somebody said, you know, I started this issue, I started this company because I was working around a problem. And the problem I was trying to solve was employment for people who'd lost their jobs at newspapers, not a problem for my audience, which were people who loved food and loved local food and loved community. Now, if I look at what my passion is, it's about building virtual and physical communities, whatever those might be, and I'm building one around food, and it wasn't necessarily to be an employment agency. So I had women that were coming to me that really were looking for a job, not a business. And so I had to rethink the strategy that I was looking at for this company and look at other different markets for what I was doing that actually was going to bring revenue in and grow the company. And also look for partners who were committed to the idea of local food and building communities and not necessarily interested in becoming employment agencies for out-of-work journalists. So we've been doing a little bit of refocusing since January of this year. One of the avenues and clients for our services were a content company. And so syndicating our content is one of the revenue streams that we've looked at. And one of the key markets for that are the farmers markets that I've mentioned that are cropping up all over the country like weeds. And they need marketing. They need content. They need to be able to drive traffic to their sites. And they typically are people who love good food but don't know anything about marketing. And so my new customer base are the farmers markets and the farmers markets managers who I can work with to build content, to use our technology to help them understand social media. And they've got dollars to be able to help do that. So that's my story. I'm Michelle Ferrier at locallygrownnews.com.
Great.
Or questions?
Thank you both. Are there any questions?
Well, apply for the grants. April 4th is the deadline.
Okay, good. Jan, do you want to just you want to just sort of lay out in a sentence or two what the criteria for the grants is, because I don't think you really nailed that.
Yes. It's pretty loose, actually. Got to be a news and information project. Got to be a startup, but we will take beta. It can be in a beta form. But if you've been around for 2 or 3 years, you're probably a little too old for where we are. And you've got to launch in 10 months. Pretty simple.
And the size of the grants are?
12,000 right now.
12,000
I think in the next round, after this year, they're going to go up to 15. The funder is interested in doing a little more. And we're looking for more funding.
And how many grants do you give in a year?
There will be 4 this round.
Uh-huh.
So
okay.
we get about 500 proposals for 4 grants a year. It's
okay.
Competitive.
Good. Terrific. Thank
right.
you. Okay. All right. Last but not least, Natalia Oberte Noguera, founder and CEO of Pipeline Fund, and Emma Nothman, principal at Booz & Company.
Oh my gosh, it's 6:20 p.m.
Oh my
This
gosh.
means it's time for everyone to stand up, please. Stand up, I say. And we're going to stretch, because I need that too. Okay. So I have a question for everyone. Please raise your hand if you've thought about becoming an entrepreneur. No, you have to stay up. Okay. Raise your hand if you've thought about becoming an entrepreneur. Look around the room, please. Okay. Now raise your hand if you thought about becoming an investor. Look around the room. Not that many as becoming an entrepreneur. So, who am I? I'm Natalia Bartinoguera, and I am the... Now you can sit down, yes. You can sit down. And I'm the founder of Pipeline Fund Fellowship. And what we do, in a nutshell, is we train women philanthropists to become angel investors. Specifically, angel investors in women-led for-profit social ventures. And how did I get to do this? In January 2008, I moved back to New York City, and I had the opportunity to launch New York Women Social Entrepreneurs, which is a professional network of both social entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs, women interested in the intersection between sustainability and entrepreneurship. And one of the things that I love, and if there's anything that, in terms of tips that I can share with you so that you can go home with something and practice it every day, is to name check a woman innovator as much as possible. We've talked about self-promotion. It's also important for us to promote ourselves. Think about the last time that you name checked a woman innovator in terms of a book or in terms of, a really great quotation. I know I've been to a lot of conferences and a lot of panels, and lots of times women are name-checking guys. So let's name-check ourselves some more. So on that note, what ended up happening with New York Women Social Entrepreneurs was that we created a very safe space, and I'm going to name-check Jory Desjardins from this morning because she was talking about how it's important to know the pain of the user. And so as I grew Noise from 6 women to over 1,200 within 2 years, I started knowing the pain of women social entrepreneurs. And very specifically, that pain was that it's really hard to fund for-profit social ventures because it's gray, it's ambiguous, people don't get it. Traditional investors, they're thinking, my ROI, what I care is my ROI, and you're telling me about environmental responsibility, social impact, those things are vague, how are they measurable? And then you have traditional philanthropists, and they're like, we do good, we do charity. For-profit is a dirty word. So then there are not really that many people out there that really get what a for-profit social venture is. So that was on the one hand. I understood that pain. And the more that I hung out with women social entrepreneurs, the more that I realized another part of the puzzle, which was that the investment community is made up of mainly guys, mainly white guys. And putting those two things together, I suddenly realized how powerful would it be to engage women philanthropists who already get the social impact part of the equation and share with them that they can make a difference in the world by actually investing specifically in women-led for-profit social ventures. So we soft-launched in the summer of last year, and we had a call for applications this past December. And we are actually announcing our 10 Pipeline Fund Fellows this week, and I'm really excited and delighted to introduce you to one of our Pipeline Fund Fellows. And before I hand her the mic, just to share with you what our components of the fellowship are, there are 3 main components. The first one is education. So we're going to have workshops on due diligence, term sheets, valuation, portfolio strategies. The second one, and I'm a huge fan of this one, is mentoring. So we're actually matching each fellow to an experienced angel investor to serve as a role model. And guess what? Most of them are guys. And this is on purpose. Why? Because our goal is to change the culture of the investment world. And right now, the culture is being created by guys. And so we want to engage them in the conversation so they can actually see faces behind those numbers of people and women who are interested in becoming investors. And then the third component is practice. Like Nike says, just do it. So all the fellows, when they were applicants, they all had to commit to putting down $5,000 for a collective of $50K that they, at the end of the training, will then invest in a woman-led for-profit social venture. So it's not just about learning, it's not just about hearing, it's also about doing it and putting your money where your mouth is. And that's a really huge part of the experience, because we want the fellows to own the risk, the potential loss, the potential gain. And we're very excited about starting our fellowship, and I'm delighted to introduce you to Emma Nothman, who's one of our inaugural Pipeline Fund Fellows.
Hi. So I think I'm a potentially different voice than we've heard throughout the rest of this session. And part of my objective in this conversation is to kind of share a little bit about how I ended up getting involved in this and what I'm hoping to ultimately get out of it. But I think in order to do that well, let me just start by giving a little bit of background on myself and kind of how I came to Pipeline Fund Fellows. So I'm a consultant, management consultant. I work for Booz & Company. We're a big global firm. I have been a consultant for my entire career, which is actually fairly rare. I joined a much smaller entrepreneurial consulting firm called Katzenbach Partners right out of undergrad, actually. And Katzenbach was eventually bought by Booz almost 2 years ago. And actually, in that transition, I had kind of fallen in love with education as a sector through a couple of kind of happenstance projects. Had never really done much in the space, and suddenly decided that this was a sector I wanted to spend the rest of my career in. And in the transition from Katzenbach to Booz, had a mentor, actually a female mentor, the only female mentor I've ever had, tell me, well, you're really passionate about the sector. Booz doesn't have a business in it, but why don't you try and build it? And I said, man, that sounds pretty scary and pretty risky, and I don't really know what this whole Booz thing is all about, but I'll give it a shot. And if worst comes to worst, I can leave and go start an education consulting firm with a partner that I happen to be very close with at the time. So to make a long story short, I didn't obviously end up leaving. Actually was fairly successful at building the business. Now run our North American education practice. And in October, just got promoted to principal, which is one of the leadership levels in consulting. So right after I had gotten promoted, I learned that I was the youngest person ever in the firm to get promoted to that level, and not to mention that I was also a woman. And I suddenly felt a bit of the weight of the world on my shoulders. I realized that I was supposed to be a role model for other people. I didn't really know what I was doing, and I was kind of winging it every day. And it just so happened that right about then, I actually read in Bloomberg Business Week about the Pipeline Fund Fellows program, and it just kind of leapt off the page to me. It was just very clear that this was something that I wanted to be involved in. So there are kind of three things that jumped out at me. The first was Natalia and her team were very clear about the problem that they were trying to solve, right? It was about kind of bringing in money from the sidelines, supporting a very specific kind of venture, and from a very specific kind of funder to a specific kind of venture. The second thing was it was highly pragmatic. It wasn't about sitting in a classroom learning about how to do valuations. It was actually kind of a group of people doing that together and learning and making mistakes together, which was quite attractive to me. And then the third thing was it offered a network, both a network of other folks that I was going to go through that experience with, but access to networks that already were in existence in the space. So as I kind of took that ad in the magazine and went away to write my application, I did a lot of thinking about why this had jumped off the page to me in this way, and I realized a couple things. I realized that at Booz & Company, 5% of our partners and principals are women in a firm that's been around for 100 years. I realized that I had only ever had this one female mentor. And I realized that, again, people were kind of looking to me to be that for other people. I realized that I maybe didn't want to take the risk of being an entrepreneur myself, but I could help to be a part of a solution for other people, both sort of entrepreneurs within Booz who also wanted to build a business that they were really passionate about in the same way that I was passionate about education, but also that I could be a force and a voice in the broader sort of community and world for solving a problem about kind of how to bring in women from the sidelines and have them own and kind of grow their ideas. So that kind of brought me to write my application. And I think as I look forward, I'm super thrilled about being a fellow. And I've told so many folks within Booz about the opportunity, and they're all really excited, both for me, and then the story that I will share with you in a second is it's actually changed Booz. So in explaining to my mentor and a couple other senior folks at Boost that I was going to do this program and that Natalia existed and wasn't this wonderful, I started a conversation at the leadership level about women in consulting and women at Boost. And as of about 2 weeks ago, I've actually been tasked with leading an effort at the North America level to redesign our diversity program and make sure that we're getting not just enough women in the door, but that we're actually cultivating them as leaders and bringing them up to partner and principal level. I'm thrilled about this opportunity. I don't know what I'm doing. But I figure that we'll figure it out and we're going to make it work. I've been really surprised by the number of male partners who specifically have reached out to me and said, we're super excited that this is happening. It's ridiculous that we don't have any 5%. 5%, we're on par with the mining industry. We're worse than banking. I mean, it's kind of silly. So anyways, I think that there's only upside here. We can only get better, and I'm super thrilled to be a part of the solution.
So I did want to bring up a point that Emma mentioned, which is failure. And we talked about this during the lunch keynote. And I kind of wish that we could have really talked about empowering women to fail, because that's a huge issue in terms of perfectionism. And a story that I like to share is that there's a guy who's, he has his business plan, it's 40% ready. He gets called to pitch to VC, and he's like, out the door. And then there's a woman who has a business plan 80% ready. She's like, can I please reschedule? All the I's haven't been dotted, all the T's haven't been crossed. And in effect, actually, even if she didn't get, and I'm saying even if you didn't get the funding, the feedback that you're going to get from even going and pitching might actually be more valuable and might get you closer to a business model that will actually meet the market needs. So that's also something that I love to share with you. We need to create a culture where it's actually much easier for women to fail. There's a story about Catherine Bigelow, how one of her videos actually it wasn't a blockbuster, let's just say that's the light way of putting it, and she didn't get funding for years. Then there's this other example of this male guy, director, who had it tanked, the next year he got funding. So there is that double standard, and at least if we're aware of it, we can help ourselves in getting through. The other tidbit that I'd love to share with you, and I'm going to name check someone. It's Women Who Tech on Twitter, Allison Capon. She wrote, she's not here. I tweeted her just to make sure that I was saying her last name correctly. And she's like, I'm not here, sorry. I'm still name checking her. And she wrote a Fast Company article where she had lots of statistics about the venture world. And there were two statistics that really caught my eye. The first one was in 2009, out of $17.6 billion that were angel investors put down in funding startups, only 9.4% went to women-led startups. Yes, that sucks. Guess what? There's something that sucks even more. Of those people who pitched, only 20% were women-led startups. So the issue is not just that we're not getting funding, it's that we're not pitching. So the reason I'm bringing this, yes, yay, not pitching. So how are we, Pipeline Fund Fellowship, how are we also going to connect with women social entrepreneurs? Once again, let's go back to the Nike, the Just Do It. So part of our fellowship is we're going to hold a pitch summit, and I invite you, if you're a woman social entrepreneur, to go and apply to our pitch summit. And it's about making it much more comfortable for women social entrepreneurs to pitch. So come pitch, practice, and then the next day go and pitch to like a male VC, because it'll be much easier if you're in a safe space, which is an actual training, and you're actually going to be part of getting future angels out there and creating relationships with the Pipeline Fund Fellows will hopefully mean that later on, if and when you're ready for pitching, you'll have either an advisor, a mentor, or someone who could actually invest in your company.
And Natalia, when and where is this pitch Pitch Summit.
Yes, we will be sharing it as in our press release, and we're very excited that we will be announcing our 10 Pipeline Fund Fellows in the coming days, and we'll make sure to share the information with the BlogHer community.
Okay, great.
So thank you.
Good, thank you. I think we're all off the stage, and it's back to Elisa. And Lisa, thank you. And Jory.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you so much to Patty for emceeing this final marathon session, but so packed full of amazing information. So thank you. And thank you to all of our wonderful resources and the women who've been through these programs. So as always, we don't have a lot to say at the end. We just want to say thank you for coming. We hope that you got a lot of actionable value out of the day and that you're going to go to dinner with me at Vegan Asian Food.
Earlier today, we opened by saying that we wanted to acknowledge the excellent statistics that the woman I really only know as Nakas on Twitter just mentioned about the dearth of women in funding, but what an incredible opportunity for all of us to go fill the pipeline with great ideas, great opportunities for venture funding, great huge new companies. I don't think I could be more inspired after hearing you guys today. My favorite tweet was the one that said, wow, it's one of the first conferences I've ever been to where the mentees are just as impressive, if not more impressive than the mentors. So hand it up, ladies. Great day. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Amber India.
Pistachio.
Right on. Amber India.
Have a great night. Thank
Good
you.
night.